and welcome to another staff library video. My name is Dominique Hood, and I'm an historical interpreter at Historic Richmond Town. And today we're going to be talking about two books that left a big impact on me that I finished this past year. And the first one is called Bloodlands, Europe Between Hitler and Stalin by Timothy Snyder. And I forget where I first saw him. I think it was on some talk show, but he was incredibly, well-spoken and very a lot of interesting ideas about tyranny and all these other things. And so I started researching him, and I found this book, and I thought, oh, that looks interesting, so I got it, and it blew me away. And aside from all the horrific details, which I'm sure you can imagine fills up this entire book, I want to talk about, just really quickly, this sort of almost reoccurring character, although it's not a specific character, but it's an entire city, and that would be the city of Warsaw. And all throughout World War II, so this is all about Europe between the two of them, so it's all about Poland and the Ukraine and Belarus and Romania and all these other places in the Balkans and whatnot. But the recurring character of Warsaw, Poland really got unimaginably destroyed throughout this war, and no matter what, whether it was the Nazis or the Red Army, being in Warsaw and keeping control over the city, there was always an element of rebellion and life and passion that sort of broke through, and it was seemingly inextinguishable amount of rebellion that the Polish people were able to exhibit through the city of Warsaw. And I don't really think that it's so much dwelled upon in this book, because this book is really sort of like a lot of the raw numbers and really sort of getting a grasp. But I thought so for two reasons. One, in this era of, in this age of a lot of global strife and the current pandemic going around the world, it's a little comforting to know that things used to be a lot worse. And on the other hand, I don't think that the author meant to highlight Warsaw in this way, but I just found it really poetic and beautiful how Warsaw keeps showing up in the Polish people, no matter how much they're stepped upon, no matter how much all resistance is seemingly exterminated in the city. Somehow, a chapter later, there are rebels throwing Molotov cocktails at Nazis in their guard towers, and it really is a beautiful story amidst all the chaos and depression that I'm sure you can imagine fills up this book. So that's the first one. And another one, which is a little bit related, it's not really a whole book, but a section of a book. This was a dusty old copy of The Art of the Novella, which was sort of a compendium by Arnold B. Sklark. And I didn't know most of these when I first started reading this. I was just sort of thumbing through it, and I found a story by a woman named Katherine Porter, who I had not heard of before, but the story is called Pale Horse, Pale Rider. And she was sort of, I guess, at the tail end of what you would call the golden age of American literature, your Faulkners and your Hemingways and sort of that era. And sort of leading out of that and then into the World War II era, she was a very big writer. And this story is actually about, I have my suspicions that it's semi-autobiographical, but this story is about the Spanish flu influenza pandemic of 1918, or 1917, 1918. And so there's a lot of similarities in just a lot of the setting as to what we as a nation are going through right now. And one of the things that I thought was really important to highlight was how she, the main character, is roughly about 18. She's a news reporter for a local paper. And it basically centers around her and her friend and her boyfriend, who's in the army but hasn't been shipped off to World War I yet. And it basically centers around them just sort of going about their lives as the influenza and the sort of greater crisis gets worse sort of in the background until it slowly comes to the foreground at the end of it. And one of the things that I'm sure has been infuriating some people out there is how possibly some people in our country may not be taking this as seriously as other people and a lot of the authorities and experts would ask that we take it. But I think it's really important to look at how young people who had never experienced something like this before kind of have to live through it in order to grasp it. And I don't know if I'm okay with that, and I'm not sure if that's something that can be prevented. I hope so in the future. But it's a little bit grounding to see how a story from literally 100 years ago has the same sort of elements as the things that our society is dealing with now in regards to this pandemic. So this was a great story, and it actually made me totally fall in love with her as a writer. I had no idea who she was before this, and it's really amazing, and it's a quick read. It's like a novelette almost. It's only maybe like 15 or 20 pages, but it's one of the most beautiful things I've ever read. Please, if you have the time, go look up Pale Horse, Pale Rider by Katherine and Porter, and let us know what you think of it. Thank you very much.